This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the Antoine Dupont of website builders. 2023, Ireland won their first ever Grand Slam on home soil. The All Blacks clung onto the Rugby Championship once again, and Eddie Jones got hired by Australia. But in amongst the highs, lows, and the mad little bits in between, this was a year in which some rugby was played by some people. And in order to celebrate the best of that rugby, it's time for this, the Squidge Rugby Team of the Year 2023. Now, as this is the first installment in that team, which will spool out through your YouTube app daily over the next just under a week, it's high time to once again run over the ground rules. The team you're about to see is not a side of the world's best players. It's not the 15 I'd select to go and play Mars in a test match next week. It's a 15 of players who we here at Squidge Rugby Towers think deserve to be celebrated the most for what they achieved, how they played, and how they made us feel across 2023. For example, last year, Chile's Rodrigo Fernandez was at 10. This wasn't arguing he's a better rugby player than Beauden Barrett, Andre Pollard, Owen Farrell, or Rouet Demant, though he obviously is, but rather the way he took on superstar status for his side as he guided them to their first ever World Cup qualification made us feel excited about him as a player, about the game, and about what he achieved more than any other 10 in the world that year, relative to everything around them. And as such, it's a mixed gender team. It always has been. It has been since the start in 2018, and it will continue to be for so long as we make this, no matter what you write in the comments. So, do as you feel free. International rugby takes on a greater weighting, but club rugby is also considered, and playing in a dominant team who wins everything won't necessarily grant you any automatic selection over somebody who excels in a poor team, for example. As in 2019 and 2022, we've given greater weighting to the Rugby World Cup, but form is considered for the full year, club, country, and beyond. But all of that said, there is also one other tiny little factor, and that is how good all these players are at making websites. See, there are those out there, naming no names, Arundel, who, despite flashy reputations, still use HTML for their every web design task. But the names you're about to see on this list today are those who instead go to Squarespace. Instead of fiddly, old hat, difficult techniques, they're able to produce a website quickly, simply, and most importantly, beautifully. In a way you never know it took them no time at all, but using so many great and innovative features with Squarespace's new Fluid Engine technology to simply drag, drop, click, slide, insert, remove with just one button press, 2 button presses, 3 button presses, and you've got a complete website you can then publish quickly before sharing simply to social media and then integrating social media back into it, becoming one big ecosystem for the world to see. And if you're Henry Arundel or just want to boost your chance of making this team next year, then why not head to the link in the description and use the offer code SquidgeRugby to save yourself some money whilst doing that. Web design did not actually feature in the list of criteria. And without any further ado though, it is time to dive in as we begin at the back, right at the very back row, not the back row, with the numbers 15, the number 14, the number 11. It's the best back three of 2023. Hugo Keenan played 23 games of rugby and counting this year. He played a full 80 in 22 of them, with one injury-enforced shortened performance against England the only exception. And I don't think in any of those 1,802 minutes of professional rugby played by Keenan this year, he made a single solitary mistake. Call it hyperbole and I'd call you boring. Hugo Keenan is the Rob Kearney, Lee Halfpenny model, the flawless fullback remade for the more demanding millennial Gen Z audience. A player whose positioning is flawless, is defensively sublime, rock solid under high ball, but has a much more evolved and evolving attacking skill set. Keenan has an incredible sense of when and where to inject himself into a game, where to involve himself, plucking moments to turn up for maximum impact, be it on strike moves, be it coming in as an extra runner, be it hitting angles or sliding in as a first receiver to run plays while his fly-offs in the floor or to slot in to allow them to throw the more difficult pass. He's always been dependable, seemingly allergic to errors and incapable of dropping high balls, but this year his all-round attacking game, attacking off faceplay as well as the quality from deep he's always possessed, has come on so much, and it's been the real change that's made him, for me, the best player in the 2023 Six Nations and a man who kept his standards high the entire year through. Hugo Keenan is one of the most effortlessly excellent players in the world, a rock and freaking try scorer in Ireland's fantastic until it wasn't year, and an utterly nailed on way to kick off 2023 Team of the Year. There's just something about him. Will Jordan is probably one more year, like he's had the last couple, away from being in the conversation as one of the game's greatest ever try scorers. His sixth sense ability to only pick lines that will bring him a score is, frankly at this point, unbelievable. He's the king of being in the right place at the right time, yet also now equally able to create, be it for himself or for others, becoming a sublime ball-playing distributor who opened up, expanded the All Blacks playbook enormously. A guy with such a range of talents that Joe Schmidt and Ian Foster were able to custom build an attack around him to fashion him into an unstoppable force, an unbreakable weapon, and boy did he deliver that at the World Cup. Yes, he was great in the Rugby Championship. Yes, he was great in Super Rugby. But this autumn, he equalled Brian Haban and Julian Surveyor and Jonah goddamn Lomu's men's record for most tries in the Men's Rugby World Cup with some spectacular finishes, superb form and spirited interventions. Yes, he tore it up in the pool stage when against perhaps weaker opposition, but tries in both the quarter and semi-final helped New Zealand take control of those games and clear a path to the World Cup final. Will Jordan returns this team, and I wouldn't bet against him having that one more year he needs to be perhaps in that greatest conversation and get himself back in this team in 2024. If I open this by saying it's the winger with maybe the most punchable face in all of rugby, most of you would assume I put myself in the team, but those that didn't would probably be split down the middle. And whilst James Lowe would be a worthy addition to this side, 2023 belonged to Damian Penaud. Already world-class when the year arrived, Penaud's form in 2023 became something else. A Six Nations of unstoppable try-scoring performances combined with domestic seeds making Claremont look broadly competent, then shifted up another gear once the World Cup began. Penaud became borderline unplayable, genuinely. I've used that word before by players, but Penaud I think is the closest anyone's realistically come in the last decade of rugby. Some of the best form you've ever seen from a winger as he scored try after try, seemingly just dotting down whenever he wanted to, breaking tackles like they were nothing, and starting to even put in kicks for others to score off, starting to vary his game to a ridiculous degree. Penaud became a sensation, a player at his peak, a player you couldn't imagine going a game without scoring a hat-trick, reaching a level that only the very, very greatest wingers to ever play the game ever really reach. And you know what? Pains me to say it, but after the way he played, I think he deserved to look pretty smug about it. Honourable mentions time, and whilst these three were pretty far ahead, they were pretty nailed on, a few names did almost squeeze their way in. England's Abby Dow is probably Penaud's main rival for the most untackleable player in rugby, and the only person scoring tries as often as Jordan, whilst Portugal's Rafael Storti made himself one of the most in-demand talents in the world with a series of electric, undeniable performances alongside fellow winger Rodrigo Marta, a hell of a finisher who had a brilliant year, and the pair then combined to give us one of rugby's great moments this year. Mark Nwaneri-Danase was the Wallabies' big shining light and will be missed enormously. The Springbok quadrant of Colby, Arenza, Mapimpi and Moody were all excellent, but kind of knock points off each other by having to share two shirts between four outstanding world-class wingers. Scotland also provided three players. Darcy Graham had another superb year, was very much in the conversation for the shirt. Duhan van der Merwe had flashes of being his tackle-bouncing unbeatable best, particularly that try of the year at Twickenham at the start of the year, while Fran McGee is, for me, the breakthrough back three player of the year worldwide. Utterly brilliant, and her superb feat and game intelligence were key in Scotland's turnaround this year as the year went on. Mark Chilean nailed down the All Blacks 11 shirt and excelled all World Cup. Tabitha Sadza broke the Georgian try-scoring record. Caroline Beaujean was brilliant for France. Mac Hansen and James Lowe, utterly essential parts of the Irish machine that executed every single task asked of them, which more frequently than not was scoring brilliant tries. Gershwin Moton was one of Namibia's finest players in this World Cup and showed a real nose for the line. He was fantastic, as did Balthazar Ayaza for Uruguay, also brilliant, alongside Nicola Freitas. Fiji's Celestino Ravithamada was another superb breakout player, fantastic in Super Rugby, then again stepped up to test level. And Argentina and Newcastle Falcons' Mateo Carreras beat so many people in so little space. He had bloody Gen Z kids asking, "What's a phone box?" to their parents as they used the old Bill McLaren cliche. Wales's Josh Adams worked hard, but Rio Dyer somehow worked even harder, becoming a proper test player and a talismanic figure for his club, the Dragons. Claudia McDonald scored seemingly infinite tries. Marika Korombete tore the Japan Rugby League 1 open and continued to do the Marika thing that he does, where he just goes fast and then scores for the Wallabies. Kotaro Mashijima had some real flashes of genius all World Cup long for Japan, whilst Italy's Alicia Dinka became one of my favourite players this year. Just a joy on every involvement. And Blackburn, Marangi Paul has very much taken up the seemingly impossible Portia Woodman mantle, taking her shirt and not only making it look her own, but starts scoring so many tries you wouldn't even notice. Portia Woodman, maybe the greatest try scorer of all time, is not there. Now, fullbacks, let's do fullbacks. Toma Ramos' form in the World Cup probably brought us as close to displacing Hugo Keane as anyone possibly humanly could have. Finally finding a way to rein in his more madcap tendencies to just be exceptional, particularly with the boot. Freddie Steward remains a titan of technical fullback play. Willy Leroux and Damien Willemse shared the shirt for the world champions and excelled, both playing very different roles and very different styles and yet no less important to their team's success. Blair Kinghorn made Stuart Hogg feel like a distant memory as he took that Scotland shirt and made it his own. Beauden Barrett was almost the starting 15 here after a brilliant year in the 15 jersey. Emiliano Buffelli didn't quite hit the heights of last year, but has been superb nonetheless. Ellie Kildun has been on absolute career best form all year, really coming into own, being phenomenal. Also, great hair. David Diniashvili, such a weapon for Georgia, so exciting to watch. And speaking of, Jasmine Joyce, who only played in the W15 for Wales, but was so bloody good she had to slot onto the list. Hinkley Valvassa and Maria Simonescu were Romania's most dangerous forces in the World Cup and the Rugby Championship before that. Rugby Europe Championship, it's not the Rugby Championship, we didn't enter Romania in there, though we could have, they would have won it. And how could we possibly leave out the side-stepping joy from the Rugby Europe Championship that is Nuno Sousa Goejas, a player who made the entire world fall in love with steps like this. Thank you for watching that. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you had a lovely time. I hope you agreed with at least one of the honourable mentions at least. Please, you can let us know and we'll ignore you because we've already decided and already made the list of the back three. Tomorrow will be the centres. We're going to move on down the team and then work towards the half-backs, the front row, the second row, then eventually the back row last, but very much not least, because it's always the most competitive set of positions, and who knows who's going to be in there this time. We'll work through the team over the next few days, one a day for the next 5 days, 6 including today, and otherwise, we'll see you soon. There'll be more rugby coming very soon. There's a Moments of the Year video if you want to go and look at that as well, where there's loads more going on. Please, oh, Happy New Year! Happy New Year as well, that's the most important thing. Happy New Year to all of you. I hope you have a very Merry Christmas. And, rugby.
Sure. RAS pour nous, Eric.